are having Aarti Prasad and Vikyat from NSRCEL IIM Bengaluru. Hope you got great insights from the first session on incubator strategies from Mr. Karthik and Professor Ramesh from IIIT Bengaluru. Now we are going ahead with the incubator operations session, which would be delivered by Aarti Prasad, who is a program manager at NSRCEL IIM Bengaluru, and Vikyat, who is the incubation manager at NSRCEL IIM Bengaluru. Over to you, Aarti Prasad.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Arvind. I think Professor Ramesh set the right context for us to build on what the incubator operations is, and strategically how some of the incubations place themselves. Like IIITB, even NSRCEL was always focused on early stage startups, and we picked on focus areas that was not something which was common. So most of the in early 2000s, most of the incubation centers prefer to take tech-based startup, but we didn't want to go that route. So we actually went ahead and selected focus areas which was not tapped by anybody else. And I will talk a little about it as we make further progress. To have a little interactivity during this session, I want all of you to use menti.com, because throughout the session I will post some questions, and your responses will be visible on this screen. So to access menti.com, please go to www.menti.com and use the code 2503574. Please go to menti.com and use the code 2503574. And during the session, if you have any questions, you will see a question icon here. You can post your question here, and we can take it up either in between the session or after the session. So this way, everybody can see what are the questions displayed, and we will take these questions up. So again, welcome to the Incubator Operations session. My name is Aarti. I manage the healthcare incubation program at NSRCEL. I also work on the online program design and delivery at NSRCEL. So just to familiarize you with menti.com, just go ahead and type your name and the incubation center that you have come from. So there are 55 participants in this particular session. I expect at least 50 to respond to this. So go to menti.com and type this code and respond. So I can see that the responses have started coming in. We have about 4 responses already. Others, please give it a shot, because these are ways that you can also engage your startups while you're having virtual sessions. So go ahead and give it a try. Once you post your response on menti.com, make sure you come back to the Zoom screen. Okay, I will leave this open for another 30 seconds while we're waiting for others to respond. So it's great to see that we have representation from T-Hub, Cisco, Mahindra, BITS, IIM Nagpur, Anthill Ventures, IIMU. So 19 responses. Okay, so we close the voting for this. And let's move on. So today's agenda would be as follows. I will briefly introduce about NSRCEL and some of the legal essentials that are needed from an incubator point of view. What are the how the fund is managed, and what are the various compliances we need to take care of? What is the basic facilities and administrative support that we provide for startups? And I want to primarily focus on HR and building the culture of an incubator center, because these are the foundational points that will drive your incubation going forward. So NSRCEL has been in the incubation space for about 2 decades now. During our tenure, we have engaged close to about 1 lakh entrepreneurs and have incubated over 260 startups and helped to create about 7,000 jobs in the country. We are among the first 6 incubation centers in the country to be supported by the Atal Innovation Mission, DST, and METI. We have the largest women startup incubator in India, and our recent cohort of women startup program had over 10,000 entrepreneurs. This program, the phase 1 of this program just concluded last month, and around 10,000 women participated in that program virtually. NSRCEL Social is India's first not-for-profit incubator, and it was launched in 2017. So like I said, we picked on areas which was not something that others looked at. Women entrepreneurship was one of that. Then we had social ventures. We also looked at student entrepreneurship, and like Professor Ramesh mentioned that we also have an elective in IIM where students can actually go ahead and submit projects and try the flavor of entrepreneurship during their last semester. So some of our IIM students also try to get their hands into the entrepreneurship space, but we also focus on students from other institutes too. Recently, what we have done is we have shifted from sector agnostic approach to a sector specific approach also, where we encourage startups from sectors like fintech, mobility, healthcare, agri-tech, and edtech to be part of our ecosystem. So we already have a fintech program in partnership with ICICI Securities, which is running now. Mobility will be starting soon. This is in partnership with Maruti. The healthcare program will start sometime in January. We have ecosystem partners for this already in place. We do not have a sponsor for it yet. The agri-tech and edtech will probably happen during early next year. So some of our partners who have helped us to expand our ecosystem are shown here. Now what I would like to just focus on is what is a typical day at NSRCEL like? What are the daily operations? Who, as an incubator, with whom all do we interact? So we have the employees who are the program team and the administrative staff. We have the mentors, advisors, and consultants. And we have the startups. Then we have our partners. They could be institute partners, they could be corporates, they could be organizations. We have our investors who provide funds for startups. And we also have our service providers. Now, keeping these stakeholders, various stakeholders in mind, I will try to cover how our interaction with them would be in terms of the topics that we have identified today. So for legal essentials, when we think about incubator and when we think about legal documentation, what are the few things that come into your mind? Again, if you can just go to menti.com and type in some of the legal documents that come into your mind when you think of an incubation center. Just post it out there and we will see whether these are covered or whether there are more to it. Again, please go back to menti.com and then start responding. Cease and desist, right? Tax filing, annual returns, MOU, correct. Agreements with startup, incubation policy, exemption, equity models, annual returns, lease agreement, great. Again, these responses are anonymized, so please go ahead, feel free to respond and we will see. I think MOU is something which is repeating. We have annual returns, company registration, great, okay. So let's quickly move to the next slide. What I did was I have created a separate detailed document where I've covered the legal documents, why we create these legal documents, who is the our target audience for it, and when do we actually go ahead and use these documents. So I have gone ahead and highlighted that. We will be sharing that document after the session concludes. But at a very broad level, I would say that from an incubator startup interaction, we have incubation agreement, we have shareholder agreement in case we are having some equity shares. And then we will also have a share transfer agreement where suppose the startup wants to buy back the share, or they're actually selling the company, so they want to take up the share. So we have these transfer agreements. In terms of incubator and mentors, we have the standard offer letter or the and then the agreement letter that we share with these roles. Then also in terms of partners, like some of you mentioned, we will have an MOU, and we also have service agreement in some cases. Incubator, investor, and startup, we will have an investor agreement, and incubator and employee or an intern, we will have an offer letter, experience letter, and a NDA in some cases. And if it's an incubator and a service provider, we will have a vendor agreement, NDA, a professional service agreement, contract agreement, SaaS agreement, and so on. So we have templates available for these agreements already with us. I will share this link along with the document that I will be sending across. So do feel free to download these document templates. And if you need any other agreement, also the link that we have shared, they do provide free templates. You can go ahead and download. Those are all legally vetted templates. So you just have to probably get another legal person to glance through it, but most of them have been legally vetted. Then we move to the fund management and compliance. So basically, there are two sources through which we get fund. One is the corpus, where the basic incubator operation runs with the corpus. And in some cases, we will also raise external funds to run programs. So these are the two forms of funds that we will have. So in case of NSRCEL, between 99 and 2002, NSRCEL started this whole initiative. I mean, the NSRCEL was incorporated during that period, and we started off with a corpus fund. So whatever basic operations that we need to run from an incubator point of view, we are able to manage with the interest that comes through that corpus for us. It is only very recently, that is in 2016-17, that NSRCEL got funds from Niti Aayog. Using that money is how we scaled up our operations. We did a lot more outreach activities, by providing free sessions, workshops, and we also supported other incubators through capacity building. We created white papers and one or two other sources that we have, one or two other documents that we have put together, which we intend to share for the participants of this session. Let me see if I can quickly showcase that. This was one booklet that we put across for entrepreneurs. What are the questions that they need to ask themselves at each and every stage of their journey? And these questions will give them answers to go along through the journey. It's a self-reflection kind of document. So this is something that we also intend to give to our participants. So these are some of the assets that we have created as part of the fundings that we have received. We are also planning to, we are working towards creating a virtual pre-incubation program. The module is almost ready. We are running our pilot. Then we would want to make it available for other incubation centers who would just want to plug and play this module and start with their activities, with their pre-incubation activities. So this is something that we intend to do too. So how does the how does the process of fund management begin? As soon as we submit a proposal and receive fund, we directly map it to a project code so it can be tracked on a regular basis. Uh, the program manager will start with the activities required, that is the outreach and the program design activities when we receive the first tranche. And as and when we complete the various milestones, we would reach out to the partners to release the remaining tranches. We also make sure that the money is properly spent during the contract duration. And at the end of the contract, we make sure that the budget is prepared for the next cohort. We also track our expenses against the invoices. Most of the time, this particular activity is managed by the program team. And also we have support from our staff, the finance team, so that, the spend is very clearly taken care of. Yeah. So what are our revenue streams? So there are two formats in which programs are run at NSRCEL. We have sponsored programs and we have fee-based programs. Sponsored programs are where we have our partners like Goldman Sachs, who supports Women Startup Program, or ICICI supports FinTech. So these are programs where it is actually sponsored by somebody like a corporate company, and basis what they want to sponsor, what kind of program they want to sponsor, we tailor make the program design and we deliver that program. So that is one part of it. And here the kind of money that comes to NSRCEL is overhead. Any program that we run, we charge 5% overhead for NSRCEL and 10% overhead for IIMB. So that covers our expenses, and that is also one stream of revenue for us. So there are some programs with fee, which is the pre-incubation program that we run, and the incubation program. We will soon be running the startup school, where we will be offering, like I said, this plug and play model, which can be used by any incubator to start their activities. So these are the three streams of revenue that we have. Now we will quickly move to the compliance aspect. What are the various compliances that you need? If you're an incubator, what are the various compliances that you need to follow? Again, use the Mentimeter and share some of the compliances that you think must be there. Just go to menti.com, type the code 2503574, MCA compliances, section 8, correct. You need to be a section 8 for sure. Any other responses? IT returns, correct. Affiliations, return filing, auditing, company registration, correct. Yes. Equity, compliance to funding organization, true. Society renewal, any other responses? Guys, you can try, it's okay. And it's not going to be long. The session we'll breeze through some of these concepts quickly. Shortlisting startups, okay. So then we'll quickly move on. So the following mediums will assure that the incubator builds a strong foundation for long-term success. So we need to make sure that there is proper accounting. You keep record of all business transactions. This gives a thorough estimate of the financial standing of the incubator. Data reports are something which is very, very essential. You have weekly, monthly, annual reports for leadership team so that they can take strategic decision. And also it enables the growth of an incubator. We also need to make sure that there is adequate budgeting. You need to review all program budgets and ensure that program specific activities are properly funded. Internal audit, like somebody mentioned, helps to identify the operational inefficiency, and it also paves way for effective management and brings stability by overcoming the inefficiencies. Compliance is definitely something we ought to have. Um, the primary compliances are as follows. One is annual filing of tax returns within due dates, annual filing of balance sheet and statement of profit and loss, and periodic filings of indirect taxes like GST, service tax, etc. So these are things that we continue to follow at NSRCEL also.